lady just wandered into my office looking for the superintendent's office and interrupted the video, even though there was a sign on the door that said recording. Whatever. Anyway, so you're on the second page. Alan Freed, we just did, okay? So in the first box here, you're going to put what disrupted his career. You're going to write payola scandal, accepted bribes to play pieces on the radio. And then when? May 9th, 1960. You put that in the when box. Okay, so let's look at these other artists. If any of you had Elvis, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, or Jerry Lee Lewis for your project, you probably already know the answer. And I'm going to give you the dates, okay? Because that way you don't have to look them all up. So, Jerry Lee Lewis, the one who sang "Goodness Gracious, Great Balls of Fire," that guy. He married his 13-year-old cousin. Gross. And there was a whole big media scandal that went with that. It was in all the papers. It was on the radio. He had to cancel one of his tours because he was like, oh, and everyone was freaking out. Like, rightfully so, because that's disgusting. So on the what, you're going to put married his 13-year-old cousin, ? Scandal. And this happened in 1957. Okay? They don't know the exact date because when they got married the first time, it technically didn't count because he was still technically married to his first wife. Also, like, oh, God. Ugh, so much just grossness going on there. But anyway, so 1957, just put when and then ? We don't know the date, okay? Buddy Holly, one of my favorites of all time, he died in the airplane crash that also killed Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper, two other very famous artists at the time. So you're going to put what happened, killed in airplane crash, and that was February 3rd, 1959. February 3rd, 1959 is when that plane crash happened. And if you know the song American Pie, bye, bye, Miss American Pie, that song, the lyrics are all about the death of Buddy Holly. So usually we kind of delve into that whole song and everything, but we just don't have the time doing this virtual. Okay, Alan Freed, we already did. Chuck Berry got arrested for transporting a minor female who is, I believe, 14 years old across state lines. Ew. Claimed he didn't know, but like, ew. So, arrested for transporting minor across state lines, and that happened in January of 1962. January of 1962. Little Richard. Little Richard abruptly decided he was going to give up his rock and roll life and become a preacher and preach the word of the Lord. And he became like a Baptist preacher. Kind of random. And Little Richard went back and forth throughout his life between rock and roll, very, outgoing, very fluid with his sexuality, like all these things. And then he would flip the switch and become like super religious. And then he'd flip back and then he'd flip back. And this went on all the way till his death, which was recently. And a few years before his death, he was like preaching against, he had a very interesting flip-flop kind of nature. He almost had like a split personality going on. So Little Richard left rock and roll to become a preacher in 1957. Okay, eventually he would come back to rock and roll, but he took a brief hiatus, which was enough to kibosh his career a lot. And Elvis was drafted into the Army. Okay, now he could have gotten a deferment, but he wanted to serve, which is admirable. Good for you, Elvis. Ironically, it made him more popular with a lot of the older white folks who didn't like his music. So that made him more popular, but he lost his momentum with his career with the younger folks because he stopped making music. So he became more popular with some, but less popular with the age group that really pushes the, like what's popular at the time. So Elvis drafted into the Army, and that was March 24th, 1958. Okay? So if you need to pause this video and fill all that in, go ahead. And then you'll submit it. Hopefully you can add the text boxes in Kami and then submit. If you can't get that to work, just do a separate document and share it with me. That is fine. You'll get the grade either way. Okay, so all these events happened. A lot of these founding fathers were taken out. Boom. Whether they passed away or they stopped making music or whatever, it was enough to kind of sideline rock and roll. Okay? So for a few years, the more conservative folks who didn't like rock and roll and didn't like everything kind of thought they'd won. Like, it was a passing fad. Now it's over. What they didn't realize is that it had planted seeds in the ground that were gonna come up here in a few years. So I hope that made sense. Sorry this had to be 2 parts. That lady interrupted the first one. I'm frustrated about that, but sorry about that. So you have to watch both videos. Please get me that document, and I think I'll make a very easy little quiz, more of a worksheet kind of thing, just a little quiz where you're gonna have to know what happened to each artist that halted their career. Okay, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.